Now available on Kickstarter, John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this all-new Kickstarter exclusive John Haynes comic book. Put in your pledge and get the standard, variant, or retro covers of John Haynes at Death's Door and other great stretch goal rewards on Kickstarter today. Many comic fans and those who are a part of groups like Comicsgate would like to believe that the era of social justice comics started in 2016 with the launch of the all-new, all-different Marvel Comics. Now, this new era of Marvel Comics was where they were going to replace many of the white male characters like Steve Rogers, Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, and Tony Stark with minority versions of these characters, such as the Sam Williams Falcon, the Riri Williams Ironheart, and the Amadeus Cho Hulk. And this era was reviled because it was heavily focused on identity politics and race instead of well-crafted storytelling. However, after taking a critical examination of Mark Waid and Alex Ross's Kingdom Come, I can say that the social justice era of comics didn't start in 2016. No, all of the elements for the ideas for social justice comics started in 1996 with Mark Waid and Alex Ross's Kingdom Come. Now, Kingdom Come is a critically acclaimed and award-winning miniseries by Mark Waid and Alex Ross, which chronicles an alternate future where DC's heroes have gotten older and that world has changed for the worse, all to do with one tragic event which took place where your Superman could not save Lois, Jimmy, and many people in the Daily Planet from a rampage that the Joker went on. And because Superman stood for his morals of truth, justice, and the American way, many people weren't happy with Superman still continuing to stand for his ideals, and they wanted to see a character who represented many of the 90s ideals of Extreme, the Magog character, go out here and be a hero. Now, your Magog, in the aftermath of Superman continuing to stand for his morals, winds up murdering the Joker, and after he murders the Joker, what happens is that Superman is so discouraged that he winds up giving up being a hero, and the impact that's felt is all across the DC universe because most of the heroes no longer are inspired by Superman to stand for truth, justice, and the American way. So this whole story basically makes a commentary that Superman had a major impact on all of the society around him, and that your Superman was, as the first superhero, the one to inspire others to stand up and have a moral code. So instead of going out here and following the moral code of Superman, many heroes started following the road of your Magog, and as they followed down the road of Magog, society went into decline because the children of these heroes wound up participating in all sorts of chaos. Now, when I look at a couple of panels from Kingdom Come, they really remind me, this one right here reminds me a lot of the era of social justice heroes. Now, your social justice heroes, they were all about diversity, and they were all from different races, different cultures, and they had different ideas, all due to the values that they learned once Superman wound up leaving. And when we look at the newer heroes here in Kingdom Come, in this splash page, they again really remind me so much of many of the heroes of all new, all different Marvel. And as your Mark Waid and Alex Ross point out, these heroes, they have no moral compass, and they have no real mission, and they have no real direction, because all of the villains are practically gone at this point, and because they have nobody there to give them any sort of guidance. These heroes spend more time fighting each other than going out here and fighting crime. That kind of mirrors what we see in many of what they call the SJW books that are currently on the shelf today. So when we look at Kingdom Come, it basically was telling us what was going to happen in the future as related to superheroes, and your Kingdom Come shows us how these superheroes are not really about helping others, like they're just all about their egos and all about themselves. They don't have any concerns about the safety of the people around them. Everything is all about them and what they can get out of a situation. So just like your Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvels, your Riri Williams, Ironheart, many of your so-called SJW characters like Squirrel Girl and Unstoppable Wasp, we can look at the Kingdom Come characters and see that many of their actions basically are exactly the same as these so-called social justice characters. So it was like your Mark Waid and Alex Ross were foreshadowing the dark future of today's modern comic book industry in the pages of the first issue of Kingdom Come. I mean, if you look at the heroes, so-called heroes here, they have no really, again, sense of moral character, no sense of moral compass. They really, because they were raised and given everything, they really have no real reason for being a hero outside of their own egos, and their behaviors, again, are really selfish, just like many of the social justice characters. However, Waid and Ross do show us how this society gets out of control and how one great tragedy brings people to realize that there's something wrong here in some ways, and that is the Captain Atom tragedy. Now, the Captain Atom tragedy, this is the thing that really starts to make this story really make you think, because it's in this tragedy where these heroes are just attacking the parasite, not looking to find out what's wrong. Here it's just all about them being the so-called hero, and they wind up destroying most of Kansas and several other states and killing millions of people because they don't know how to be heroes, again, because there was nobody there who would go out here and have a moral position the same way characters like Batman and Green Lantern and the Flash had, and there was nobody to inspire them like Superman did. So many of these people, they never had any sort of moral compass. They never had anybody to be an inspiration to them. So they wound up becoming these selfish, self-centered, greedy heroes, and which I would definitely not call heroes in my book, because they were more like villains than anything. And that's what Kingdom Come was talking about as related to heroes. And this is what is presented here with the whole Kansas tragedy. All of this selfishness and greed that people learned from Magog, it wound up leading to the deaths of millions of people. And that's one of the things that really, I think, hurt Superman to his heart, because Superman is what he always believed in, doing what's right, and he realized that it was a great mistake to walk away from society, because it led to people, instead of them being inspired by him, they wound up becoming inspired by Magog. Now, I find it interesting that your Mark Waid and your Alex Ross in Kingdom Come make it all about your Superman being the inspiration for all of these heroes, and I always saw that part of the story as being somewhat racist. I always saw it because they always talk about the white male. He's the one who's going to inspire everybody, and if he leaves, everything will fall apart. That part of the story I have always seen as kind of racist in a way, because it basically was saying, oh, if the white male winds up leaving and nobody will be inspired, everybody will just go up and they will have a twisted morality. And that is something that the white supremacists and the slave masters used to believe about black people. That was something many of your white supremacists used to say about black people. If we leave them to their own devices and let them have their own freedom, what they will do is go out here and destroy society. So that is something that I saw in the pages of the heroes who became the next generation. You had people of different races, different creeds, different cultures, and they were basically saying unless there was a white man like Superman there, nobody would be inspired to do good. And that's the part that I always saw that was racist about Kingdom Come, that in order for these heroes to be good heroes, they needed a white man to be there to be their inspiration. And again, that's a white supremacist concept as I saw it, because as someone who has read about black people who after the emancipation and after the Civil War, we clearly see that black people would go out here and can go out here and live on their own without having to look up to a white person. And they were inspired to do good based on their relationship with the Most High God and the fact that they were just good people. And those good people built towns like Rosewood and Black Wall Street, and they did this without the inspiration of some white man. And I would like to believe that DC's heroes could have gone out here and still remained inspired to do good and what's right, because we saw this with Death of Superman. Superman died, but heroes still remained heroes. But for this story, this is what Mark Waid and Alex Ross put in the story, and they always put this in the story to again say that, oh, if Superman, the white man, wasn't there, then people would not be inspired to go out here and do good. And the heroes wouldn't be inspired to do good because there's no white man at the top driving them. And that was an idea I always, again, found to be racist about Kingdom Come. But this whole book, again, shows how many of your social justice types, again, it was foreshadowing their future and their ideas as related to heroes, because many of these social justice types, their ideas as related to superheroes, they come off just as extreme as the characters in Kingdom Come, because many of the characters in Kingdom Come, they have, again, no moral center, no moral compass, and like many of the extreme characters of the 90s, like Magog inspired, they really don't know anything about being a hero. But the main reason why they don't know anything about being a hero is because many who were supposed to teach them to become a hero, the ones who did know, like your Batman, they became disconnected and detached and walked away from their missions, all because Superman wasn't there, and they felt like they could just give up because Superman gave up. And I always saw that as coming from a position of weakness, because if one guy gives up, that doesn't mean we all give up. But the whole thing is that your Kingdom Come was making a commentary about how Superman, when he gave up, everybody gave up. And this is what led to the complete collapse of the morality of the so-called heroes. And many of these heroes, again, they act like many of the social justice characters that came out of the 2016 all-new, all-different Marvel and are coming out of the current social justice DC. And while these characters never had their own books and never really spoke too much in Kingdom Come, we can see how many of the archetypes came from this book, and how this book possibly put a lot of the ideas about the comic book industry's dark future up on stage for everybody to see. So Kingdom Come, I say again, it's a lot like Watchmen, a book that was a warning to people in the comic book business of what not to do, and it was a warning that showed us what happens when your heroes wind up becoming detached from the people that they serve, and they become detached from the missions that their parents put together as heroes. So instead of them being heroes and going out here and looking to serve people, what we see with these so-called heroes in Kingdom Come are people who have become narcissistic and are looking to serve themselves. So that's what I got from looking at the pages of Kingdom Come. You often hear people talking about, these token characters, these woke characters. Well, when I was looking at Kingdom Come, I saw all of those tropes being presented here in this book. And this book comes from 1996, not 2016 and on. And it's like your Mark Waid and Alex Ross were taking us into the dark future of the comic book industry. And it's taking us into the dark future of the comic book industry because what happened to cause this dark future was we lost an entire generation of people who cared about the craft of comics because people were caught up in making the money and becoming a part of Hollywood. So that's something I see that led to the creation of the social justice era. We lost an entire generation that loved this business, and we got a whole group of people who were all about trying to make fast money on audiences that we now know don't exist because these people don't go out here and buy the books. We see from the what they call SJW era of comics that we have all these people talking about diversity, and they go out here, create these token characters. They go out here and create these books with these far left social justice narratives, and they do this because they know nothing about the craft, and they don't know anything about the craft because no one has taught them. No, what happened to really, as I see it, do damage to the comic book industry was the fact that we went from craftsmen and craftswomen running comics to handing the reins over to those who have no passion for the business, like your Dan Didio, or those who don't know much about publishing, like a Joe Quesada, and they basically gave us the dark world of Kingdom Come in the pages of most Marvel and DC comics. So you'll hear people saying, oh, all these SJW comics, they're so terrible, but it looks like to me all we're doing is seeing us getting the dark future that was presented by Mark Waid and Alex Ross in Kingdom Come in the pages of most modern Marvel and DC comics. And sadly, many in the business did not heed the warnings that were presented here the same way your Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore tried to warn us in Watchmen. When I look at Watchmen, that was a book that was warning us about the impact of the deconstructed story model. And when I look at Kingdom Come, it was warning us about being ideologues and taking to extremes, because when you take to extremes, your heroes no longer are heroes, because when they're extreme on the left or extreme on the right, they are on two sides of evil, because good is in the center of things. And when your heroes spend time fighting each other, they are not fighting for justice, and that's what Kingdom Come was all about. Kingdom Come was a book all about heroes who had become detached from their missions, disconnected from people, and that's one of the things Superman always wanted to avoid. As a Kryptonian, he understood that yes, he's an alien, but he needs to stay connected to the people in order to understand how to serve them. So your Superman, once he wound up becoming detached from the people, he wound up becoming resigned to things and becoming apathetic, and that's what led to many of the other heroes winding up becoming divorced and apathetic, and that had an impact on the next generation because they never learned what it meant to be a hero, they never learned what it meant to stand for, and they never understood why it's important to stand for concepts like truth and justice, and why standing for truth and justice is more important than your feelings, because Superman was feeling, and they didn't understand that if you act on your feelings, it has an impact on people. So I have to say that a lot of people, they want to say again that the woke era started with your all new, all different Marvel, but I believe that your so-called social justice era started because many people never learned the lessons from Kingdom Come. And Kingdom Come is a book that is very powerful and very influential on comics, because right now the kingdom has come to comics, and that has made being a comic fan a living hell, because nobody has learned the lessons from Kingdom Come. And now, instead of us having heroes that stand for what's right, we have heroes that are just have no sense of structure, no sense of order, and they're just creating chaos in the pages of their comics. And again, Waid and Ross really foreshadow the future, because if you look at the Planet Krypton restaurant, I mean, it talks all about the commercialization of heroes and how that basically has made it where people are detached from their heroes, and how the entire world of DC and I say Marvel superheroes have turned into a world of chaos. And it's turned into a world of chaos because we did not prepare a generation of creators to be stewards. And in the late 80s and the late 90s, we didn't take the time to prepare a new generation to learn the craft of the comic business. And because that generation didn't learn anything, that's why we have this creative chaos going on right now. Because the industry got insular in the 90s, what happened was nobody was taught the craft of comics. Nobody was taught the craft of comic storytelling, and that's why the social justice comics are so terrible, because the previous generation did not prepare the next generation, and that what we saw in Kingdom Come is now being reflected in today's modern comics. So there's a lot here as related to Kingdom Come and its impact on comics. And again, this book showed us the dark future of social justice comics that we see today. And if you look at the first issue of Kingdom Come, it basically is foreshadowing the dark future of today's modern comics. So you'll hear people on many of the YouTube channels railing about social justice comics and social justice creators, but if you look at Mark Waid and Alex Ross's Kingdom Come, it really shows you how we got to where we are today in comics, and it really shows us how lost many of today's comic creators are. Now, my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, is now available on Kickstarter, and if you want to put in a pledge to get your copy of John Haynes at Death's Door, you may do so by clicking the link in the description box. And we have already gotten the book fully funded, so everybody who puts in a pledge will get a comic. And we're working on the second stretch goal, which is a John Haynes sticker. So it's a good time to get in on the John Haynes at Death's Door Kickstarter and put in a pledge for the first full SJS Direct comic. And if you want to learn more about the characters of the SJS Direct universe, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, you can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a wicked werewolf in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS Legacy. The sorority secrets of the goddess next door are revealed in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS Legacy in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.